Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Weekly Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today, two good friends of mine, Dan Waz and Charlie Cook. Dan is the author of Good Gun, Bad Guy. He's got a couple of podcasts. He writes for just about every place. Charlie Cook is Writing Shotgun with Charlie, also Charlie's Gungram. And he's won the Blogger of the Year from the SAF, despite not having a blog. So, gentlemen, thanks for joining today, man.
Anytime,
thanks a lot, man. That's how I roll.
All right. A couple of things in that. I'm going to largely let the audience take this where they will for the 1 hour show today. But a couple of news items I do want to bring up and discuss with you guys while we're waiting for some social media comments to come in. Iowa and Tennessee become number 19 and expected to be number 20 constitutional carry, or what I like to call permitless carry, because constitutional carry means you don't have to go through background checks to buy them. You don't have to, you could carry in a school, but they become the 19th and 20th permitless carry states. And we've still got Louisiana, we still got Texas in play for possibly getting permitless carry further this year. This feels like a wave to me.
Yeah, I got a message. We got a message today from our friend Tom Gresham, and he said that we are at 40% constitutional carry. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
It is really cool. And I think, Tennessee's looking at it. Isn't Louisiana and Indiana also eyeing some constitutional carry?
Indiana, it officially died for the year yesterday.
Okay.
So.
Gotcha. I just saw an article within a half hour that Maryland is still pushing, or Maryland is renewing their efforts for high-capacity magazine bans, and their magic number for high-capacity magazines is 17. So while we have one side of the country that's leaning towards freedom and letting their law-abiding, background check-passing, responsible citizens have more rights, we still have states that are spanking us and taking rights away and saying, well, you can't have this. You can't own an assault weapon. You can't have high-cap magazines.
Right.
And it's the divide is getting bigger and bigger and wider.
Delaware as well has passed, not only passed out of the Senate, it now goes to the House, not only high cap mag bans, but now they're going to be getting a pistol purchase permit. So
Delaware was the one I was thinking of. I'm sorry. I know I said Maryland. I knew it was one of those small states tucked in underneath, down by Virginia and Jersey.
Delaware is going to be loved being called a small state. I love that. Yes.
Right? There's hardly a state there. It's really small.
You drive right through it.
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island's all over the place, man. There's a bunch of little islands. It's all broken up.
Yeah, Delaware. You go through it so quick. You're like, were we just in Delaware? Where were we?
Yeah.
It is very small.
That's a lot of those New England states are like that. If it weren't for traffic, you wouldn't even notice them.
This is true. The way that you notice when you go into different states up here in New England is, and this is something, if I was ever governor, this is something I would institute all around the border of my state, is to put in good roads where the state line is. So you go from a crappy road onto a good road. You're like, oh my God, it's great to be in the state of Charlie. This is awesome.
Very good. The state of Charlie. I like that. Already getting social media comments coming in. Let me make sure that I've got them going to the right. Yes. I got to get them ticker. There we go. All right. Bring up that one. And Arkansas State Senate passes bill banning enforcement of federal gun control laws. Then there's a link there. That's another encouraging, not just the constitutional carry, but there's a lot of sanctuary states that are popping up.
Yeah, they're calling them Second Amendment Preservation Acts in some. If I remember right, it was Missouri who passed one, or is in the process of passing one, that would make it illegal and punishable by law. Should law enforcement inflict any unconstitutional gun laws on the citizens, and that's that we need more of that. And what Charlie was saying is we have a lot of like really dramatic stuff happening. Like we have constitutional carry happening in some states, and then we have these draconian gun laws happening in other states. The contrast, I don't think the contrast could be any more stark than it is. This is really a battle between government control and freedom. And I think I know who's going to win.
Let me ask this, guys, and this is going to send comments through the roof. We're already getting just tons of them, but I hear it from time to time, and I see comments often. What do you think the chances are that the United States divides, whether peaceably or not? Do you think we could see a United States of America compromised to most of the center of the country and maybe one or two other countries on the coasts?
Charlie, you want that one?
Thanks, Dan. that would be something that absolutely would blow my mind. I would hate to think that it would come to something like that. But for just over a year now, we've been talking, maybe a little bit longer, but people have been talking about an upcoming second Civil War. And my biggest concern with the second Civil War is we do not have uniforms. Mm-hmm. So we don't know who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. And we do have bumper stickers on cars, so people have the Bernie stickers and the I'm with her stickers, and the hate has no home signs in their yards. We know those are places that are not that do harbor hate, and that would be the I'm going to use air quotes when I say it, but they're the enemies of freedom, certainly, and the freedom of choice. But there's no uniforms for anybody. We don't know who's going to be who. And I know Dan and I live up in the Northeast. We're in an occupied territory.
Yeah, but we still have guns. But here's the thing is, we were just all three of us were just down in Florida, and I now Paul, coming from South Dakota, you understand, your state understands freedom, but Charlie and we come from Massachusetts and New York. So when I came back to New York from Florida, I was like, this is, it was so great to be down there because it was so open and so free, and they understand what it means to be an American. So up here, it's not that great to be up here in New York for a lot of political reasons, and we're not happy with it. But the difference between the two is really, really stark. And as far as Charlie's uniforms, I don't know, maybe like all the good guys could dress up like KISS members, KISS band members, and we'll let the other, all the lefties dress up like, I don't know, Lady Gaga or something like that. I think we'll be able to identify.
I'm in, man. I'm in. I have been wanting to wear like Gene Simmons dragon boots for 40 years. I'm in. You look taller. You look powerful.
Yeah.
You can breathe fire on people. That'll be cool too.
And you know what? The capes are really cool. Remember the capes from the Dynasty era? The capes were cool.
I try to forget about the Dynasty era. I really do.
I know.
Although completely ridiculous. My daughter, 2 years ago for Christmas, she was really hooked on "I Was Made for Loving You," so I got her the Dynasty CD, and she listened to it. She listened to it for a couple of weeks, and then it's just sitting on her shelf. And I'm like, "Come on, girl, come on!" out of all of the Kiss albums, Dynasty is the one that you get.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Really?
I know.
Yeah.
Some people say, I was talking to this one guy, and I'm a huge Kiss fan my whole life, as I know you are too, Charlie. And some guys tell me that we're right before a concert, or at a concert rather. I hope they play Beth, and I'm thinking to myself, geez, I kind of hope they don't.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, come on, let's get off this topic. This is dumb. Paul, take us somewhere else, will you?
Well,
please?
we just had a comment fly through. You can tell you're in New England when people wearing shorts in the dead of winter.
Yeah.
It's not just shorts. It's shorts, a winter coat that's unzipped, and a cup of Dunkin' Donuts iced coffee.
And a ski hat.
It's all right. It's all confused.
Yeah, we don't know what we're doing up here.
Oh my God.
A couple more that I want to get to here. David Valentine said the second is a second because if you infringe on the first, you get the second. David Wilcox wants to know, sorry guys, we're not getting off the topic. Is there a fat member of Kiss?
Is there a fat member? Well, Gene Simmons he's been a little pudgy here and there. Yeah, he's a little chubby.
Right, he's plumped up a little bit. Yeah, there's the reason those outfits are tight is because he's filling them out.
When Ted Nugent warmed up, here's a little story about how fat the Kiss members are. Not all of them are fat, but Ted Nugent opened up for them. I think it was the reunion tour, and Ted Nugent called them, said that they look like sausages in their spandex. So that's got to tell you.
That's going to leave a mark.
I'm just saying.
Before we leave the topic of Kiss, before someone else brings it up, we do have to bring up Dan's experience of playing in a band called... Hey, listen, when you set him up, man, I'm going to hit him out of the park. Dan used to play play in a band called Cold Gin in New York City, and he was the Ace Frehley of the band.
That's right. That was a long time ago. I was much better looking. I had the makeup concealed everything, but no, seriously though, we were the East Coast Cold Gin, and there was a West Coast Cold Gin, which actually Tommy Thayer played the Ace Frehley part in that band. So at the same time Tommy Thayer's Cold Gin was going as my East Coast Cold Gin was going, and we were both touring up and down the coast simultaneously. It was really cool. We did the full show, all the costumes, the pyrotechnics, the whole thing, and it was fun. It was fun for a while.
That is too cool. We all know about Mini Kiss, the little people that dress up like Kiss and play Kiss tunes.
Well, what's funny about that is another band we used to play, and we used to warm up for national acts, and the promoter called me one day and he says, Dan, I got this great gig for you. It was at a place called Northern Lights, Clifton Park, New York. You can look that place up. And he said, I got this guy. He said, I got a national for you to warm up for. It was my solo band. And I said, okay, great. Who is it? And he said, I got you a warm up spot for Mini Kiss. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I can't do it. I just can't do it. Can you warm up for Mini Kiss? Isn't that a little ridiculous? So no, I turned it down.
No. Well, you only have to get a little bit warm. You know what I mean?
David Wilcox.
All right.
Ouch.
Let's go back to something that one of the other guys said is we say this all the time, that the second protects the first. But in the meantime, we have all this infringement on TV shows and comedians, and you can't say this. I put something up today. One of the people I really look up to is Adam Carolla, and he put something up on his social media that said we have to boycott the term boycott because it starts with boy. And I'm like, he's not really off. Right, and how ridiculous is it? But our First Amendment is being taken away when Dr. Seuss and Mr. Potato Head and Pepe Le Pew are all they're all being taken away from people. And of course, then we have Cardi B and all of her WAP out there, her worship and praise on national TV, waffles and pancakes. She's got all of this. We have all of that on television, and we have to somehow accept it. but you can't come out and read a Dr. Seuss cartoon or read a Dr. Seuss book where he talks about he has a picture of a Chinese man with a long beard eating with chopsticks and says, here's a Chinese man that eats with sticks. Isn't that what they do? How can we be upset? How can we get upset by this? And while I'm on this rant, it seems to me with all of the legalization of marijuana and accepting everyone smoking pot, that one of two things should be happening. Either people should be chilled out and be like, hey man, if you like reading Dr. Seuss, like cool. Or maybe this stuff really works and it is frying people's brains. And they're like, oh my God, Mr. Potato Head? You can't have a Mr. Potato Head. You got to have a non-gender potato head. It seems completely ridiculous.
You know, if I could, childhood's been a long time ago, but I had a Mr. Potato Head. I suppose that's why I turned out this way. But I only remember eyes and nose and mouth, and I don't remember anything that would clearly distinguish Mr. Potato Head from Mrs. Potato Head. They were fully interchangeable. You would think people would be, that's the thing I want, because you can interchange and swap.
Well, nobody even cared about it back then. It was, nobody cared until these lunatic liberals came in and started wanting to change things for their own political reasons. None of it makes any sense. There's no reason you can't have a Mr. Potato Head. It's the most ridiculous stuff. And and I think that they're going to push it too far. And even the liberal progressives are going to say, okay, that's it. We've had enough of this nonsense, because they're going to start eating their own with this stuff. And I can't wait till that happens. That's going to be fun.
Oh yeah,
it is going to be fun to see. I think the only thing that Mr. Potato Head that would distinguish him as a male is a mustache. And honestly, with some women that I've seen, that really doesn't matter.
I've known some myself.
Right? She's a handsome woman.
Yeah, that's where that term came from. Handsome woman.
All right.
Right? Is that a shadow?
Let's. Wow, Mike Spear has got a comment wow. I'm just changing subjects here, going back to another subject. I'm concerned that if the government continues to go after our Second Amendment rights, there will be a possible civil war again. Although it may need to happen to bring the government back to where they are a government of the people, for the people. What's your thoughts? I want to, Mike... As much as I've made light of, I would not, honestly, if a state wants to secede, see ya, that's cool. I don't care. Let it happen. What I really, really, really don't want is a civil war. And I'll tell you why. All you got to do is go to YouTube and look up Fallujah. Look up any war zone that has happened in the past 20 years. Look for combat footage. There's a bunch out there. I don't want Omaha to be the next Fallujah. I don't want that here. When war comes, it destroys everything. There is going to be no low impact war. If it comes to civil war, it's going to get ugly, and people you love are going to die. And the worst part might be that you live. I don't want to have to. If civil war comes, I will. I'm old. I'm fat. I'll probably still be involved. I don't want my grandchildren involved. We have a chance to set things right through voting and through the courts. Let's let that play out first.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Paul. And I think. Oh, I'm sorry, Charlie. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm with you. I think it's a scary idea. It's a scary proposition. I dread the thought of somebody coming to my house, knocking on the door, asking for my stuff, and me having to protect myself with the stuff that I have. A scary proposition, and Absolutely. So go ahead, Dan.
Well, unfortunately, Paul talked about voting and courts, and I agree. I would never want to see anything like that. But unfortunately, if we can't trust our voting system, and Democrats are stacking the courts, then sometimes I even think myself that it's inevitable that it could happen. But I hope it doesn't, and I hope that we can turn things around, because it would be obviously it'd be the most horrible thing that could happen in our country. We just can't let them steal our country either and turn us into a communist country. We just can't have that. So I think a lot of people are thinking about this. It's an interesting topic. It's a scary topic, but it's something that we should at least be aware of as a possibility and do everything we can so it doesn't happen.
I want to get to a social media comment here. Tony Novak said the police would be supporting gun rights. I disagree, bud. Some of them will, but just like the rest of the population, some won't. Go ahead and just look back at what happened during Katrina. The mayor of New Orleans said, go door to door, take all the guns. So the police went door to door and they took guns, including from grandma who had a old lever action 22. Look up the video. There are going to be cops that go ahead and enforce the order. Maybe not even the majority, but enough that it will be ugly.
Yeah, plenty of these people just, I hate to say this, just do their job. If they're told to break in someone's door, they're gonna break in someone's door and get into their house and go through their stuff. Some of them are gonna do it, I think, and we'd like to think that cops are gun guys, and I will say that not all cops are gun guys. I've run into police before. I teach gun safety classes out here, so I've run into people, and if I'm in line and there's a police officer, I'll buy him a cop. I send him a good vibe. I wave to the people that are doing details. In my mind, that helps me send out a good vibe to the police, so that when I'm doing 80 on the highway, I go buy a cop, they'll let me go. But having said that, not all cops are gun guys. And I've had people say to me, well, you like guns, why don't you become a cop? I don't want to be a cop. I don't want to do any of the cop stuff. I don't want, that's not what being a gun guy is about. It's not about being a police officer. And there are people that are police officers that are pro-gun guys. There are people that are police officers that are anti-gun guys. And there are people that are police officers that have a gun because they have to have a gun and they carry it, and it's just something they have to use as part of their work. And when I tell people in classes that, to students in classes, I say, listen, not all cops are gun guys, and some cops only shoot once or twice a year when they have to qualify. And if you learn how to golf from Tiger Woods, not drive, but golf, you're not going to be a good golfer. I always try to get those in there, Dan. And I saw Paul was taking a drink. I'm like, oh, this is a bad time for me to say this. But you can learn how to golf from the best. You can learn how to drive from the best. You can learn how to do whatever from the best. But if you do it twice a year, you're gonna suck.
Yeah, you are.
You
Brent Amsden. Oops, and I. Brent says, and I got to get it to come up here again. I'm sorry. Let me get this one up first here, and then I'll try to find where Brent's was. I lost it. Basically, he's saying right now that voting and the courts are worthless right now. And I want to disagree with that a little bit. Voting in certain states is kind of a foregone conclusion. For example, in South Dakota, we are just about as likely to elect a Democratic governor as the sun is to rise in the west tomorrow. Not going to happen in the near future. However, the courts are absolutely positively still in play. We just had a ton of appointees by the Trump administration into the federal court system. That is why the Second Amendment Foundation has over 35 active lawsuits across the country, with more coming. The courts are going to be the salvation of the Second Amendment, is my honest opinion.
Yeah, an important thing is we have to hold on to the filibuster, especially right now with the Biden administration and with the Democrats holding Senate and House, and because that's really critical right now to just about everything. And the good news is Georgia, I was just watching a press conference earlier today, they're passing a voter ID law in their state, so that's a good thing. The governor was on talking about that today, and it's just really it's a really kind of strange time right now because everything is the left is doing their thing and the right is trying to hold on to the Constitution. It's a struggle right now.
I got to get this one in. I'm sorry, guys. I've got to. George Geller says, "Is there a Tiger Woods school of high performance driving?"
Probably not.
Not one I would attend, even if there were.
That would be funny.
Yes, it would.
So to Dan's point, talking about having voter IDs, I went through something 2 weekends ago when we went down to Florida, and I'm sure Dan didn't hear this. I don't know if I ended up telling you, Paul, or if you ended up hearing this. I had to go through some rigmarole to get a rental car. It wasn't enough that I had a reservation. It wasn't enough that I've been using I'm going to say it, that I've been using the Enterprise app since I started riding shotgun with Charlie, and I fly to a GRPC. I always end up getting an Enterprise rental car because they've got the app and I've got all my information on there. When I went down to Orlando, I found out I was not a verified user, so my debit card wouldn't work. And I'm relatively debt free. I don't have any credit cards. My debit card wouldn't work without other forms of ID, and I had to have a water bill, a cell bill, a cable bill, an electric bill, and a cell phone bill. And I had to have 2 of 5 of those. I don't have a water bill, I don't have cable, and I don't have oh my God, whatever one of the other bills was. I have a cell phone and I have an electric bill. And I had to get on the AT&T app to change my address because my billing address is a P.O. box. I had to change that on the AT&T account so I could show them that I had a house address rather than a mailing address. And then I had to call my insurance company. Thank God it was a Friday. I had to get someone from the insurance company to send me a statement with my address on it. And, of course, that statement had my P.O. box on it. And they wouldn't accept that, so I had to have my insurance company change my mailing address to my physical address, and then had to have them send me a PDF of my declaration of insurance to show that to this person. And they looked at it for, I'm going to round up and say 2 seconds, to show them that I had an address before they'd give me a rental car. Like, you have got to be kidding me. It took 45 minutes for me to get a rental car that I'd made a reservation for, and I told someone 2 days before that I was going to be using a debit card. They're like, oh, sure, that's fine, no problem, you're good to go. Like, you got to be kidding me. So we have to go through this nonsense to get a frigging rental car. We have to go through this to get onto an airplane, but it's racist to have someone do this when they go vote? What are these people, nuts? This is crazy.
Yeah, this is what we get when Democrats have control. This is what we get. It's terrible, and I can't wait until the midterms so we can turn things around. This is just crazy. Charlie, what airport was this? Did you say it was in Florida?
I flew into Orlando.
Orlando. Yeah, I flew into Tampa, and I didn't have any issues like that, but crazy.
Brent says, Charlie, couldn't you just show your I voted sticker for ID?
I was so upset with myself because usually when people ask me for a license, I say, sure, my driver's license or gun license. And I'm mad at myself that I didn't pull those out, because I would be like, listen, I've got my driver's license, I've got a Massachusetts license to carry, I've got the Utah license, I've got a New Hampshire license, and I have a machine gun license in Massachusetts. You think one of those would work. But I didn't think fast enough. I was so worked up.
John Anderson says, it should not be easier to vote than it is to purchase a firearm. And by the way, John, Central Time Zone is the only time zone that matters. And where are we at here? Where are we? Oh, Brent says, I want unsolicited firearms mailed to me. And my screen, I've got a brand new monitor. And a big curved monitor. Just love it. And I think I'm going to have to send it back because it keeps dying at very inappropriate times. It comes back, but and then Steven says, as long as it's not a high point.
Well, listen, you can still use it as a doorstop. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, or a club. I mean, who needs brass
Right.
knuckles when you've got a high point?
In August I did a tour in down south, and I did some shows in Tennessee and Alabama and Georgia. And one of the people I interviewed in Georgia was Claude Warner, the tactical professor.
Mm-hmm.
He was carrying a Sky in the appendix carry, and I had to ask him. I'm like, is that a Sky? You're Claude Warner. Is that a Sky? And he said it was. He said he's been dry firing it. It's been through over 10,000 dry fire cycles. He said he did have, I don't know if it's a firing pin, but he had something break on it. He sent it back to them. They fixed it, no questions, no problems, and repaired it and sent it right back. So he's like, listen, if I can carry one of these guns and trust it with my life, they must be all right then.
I have shot one Sky Arms gun in my life, and a friend of mine owned it. I'd heard about them, of course, and they are very inexpensive firearms and built to shoot that way because you had to hold the safety down to get more than one round off. Otherwise, it was a single shot.
Oof. Yeah, that's not good.
Let's see here. And we have one. Apparently, I missed a comment that somebody wanted up, and they said thanks for ignoring my question. Sorry, folks. Let's see. We've gotten almost 100 comments between Facebook and YouTube in 30 minutes. I can't get them all. I'm sorry.
We have to blame it on the monitor.
Yeah, and once again, right now it's black. I wish I could see what comments are coming in. So, what else should we be talking about today, guys? We got 30 minutes down, 30 to go.
Well, one thing that I've been working on is the dangers of universal background checks, and we'll always see the anti-gun crowd pushing for universal background checks. And one thing that I want to make as clear as I can and help people understand is that the universal background checks, background checks in general are not a good thing because the system doesn't work properly. And what it does is it puts good people at risk by not allowing them to purchase firearms while doing nothing to stop the bad guys. I mean, we all know this stuff, but I want to give you some data. A couple pieces of information. In 2017, the Government Accountability's Office, is that what it's called? The Government Accountability Office, I think it's called. They did a study. They came up with 8.6 million NICS checks. So 8.6 million NICS checks. Now, out of 8.6 million checks, there were 112,000 denials. So instantly, you all right, Paul? Okay, he's got it on mute. So okay.
He's a highly trained professional.
Yep. Okay. But out of the 8.6 million background checks, there were 112,000 denials, and only 12,000, final denials. Investigations, I should say. So what happens is 99%. This is a John Lott study too. John Lott says 99% of these background checks that are denied are false positives, which means that 112,000 people get denied their right to purchase a firearm. And then there were only 12,000 investigations. Now, out of those 12,000 investigations, you guys take a guess. How many actual people who should not have been purchasing a firearm do you think were stopped? Out of 112 denials, 12,000 investigations. Take a guess how many people shouldn't have been buying a firearm were actually stopped?
I'm going to guess 1,500.
12. And I don't mean 1,200. I mean 12. 1, 2.
Like 1 dozen.
There were 1 dozen people who shouldn't have been purchasing a firearm were stopped out of 112 denials. So what this tells us, is that 112 people were stopped from purchasing a gun. They were denied their Second Amendment right for no good reason. Now the anti-gunners are saying, well, at least we stopped 12 mass shootings, but the truth is, of those 12 people who were stopped, if they were cold-blooded killers, they would have already been in prison. So these are denials, and these are people who are denied their Second Amendment right. Even the ones who are finally denied in the end, probably not killers, probably other types of crimes, not necessarily a violent crime, because from what I've heard, you can bounce checks. And there was a case where a guy bounced 2 checks 20 years prior, and he was denied his right to purchase a gun. So anyway, the point is, 112,000 people on average per year are denied their right to purchase a firearm for no reason. That's why the background checks are terrible. And the anti-gun crowd, and unfortunately some people who claim to be pro-gun, advocate for more of this stuff. It's dangerous to good people, and it does nothing to stop the bad guys.
I
agreed. Go ahead.
Go, Charlie. I'll come back in a minute. I'll circle back to it.
Circle back, and that'll be great.
Circle back.
That's John Petrolino's new phrase too. The background checks. First of all, I want to say something about the comment that somebody made up about straw purchases. I was listening to the NPR station, NPR, the National Putrid Radio. I was listening to them a couple years ago. This is when Obama was in office, and he came out. I think he was signed some executive order to mandate background checks. Blah. And I was listening to the liberal wackos on the NPR station, and they said that they're like, well, I called in and said, look, the background check stuff is ridiculous and it's nonsense. And they said, well, what if some gangbanger from Boston sends his girlfriend up to New Hampshire where they don't do background checks, and she buys a dozen handguns and brings them down to give them to her gangbanger boyfriend, and he sells them on the street? And I said, well, let's see. You can't buy guns for people that can't possess them. You can't buy handguns in states you don't live in, and you can't transfer them to people who don't have licenses and cannot possess them. So everything that you're asking me is already illegal, and you want to know how to make it really illegal? This doesn't make any sense.
And they let that go there.
No, they cut me off. That's what they do. Often when I've called into talk radio, I get cut off and hung up on. So yeah, it's so the background check stuff. How many background checks do we have to go through? How many is the question? We in my state, we go through 2 background checks to get a gun license. We go through one in the town, and we go through one with the state police. And then after that, we're good to go. We have background checks. When you buy a gun from a dealer, you still have to go through the 4473 and the NICS check. And you can't sell a gun to someone who doesn't have a gun license. And in order to go through a gun license, you have to go through 2 background checks in Massachusetts. And I say that my gun license is my good guy card because it shows you I have gone through background checks. How many more do we have to go through? Man, oh man, it's tiring.
Well, I think we have to realize that they don't want background checks. The background checks aren't necessarily designed to stop the bad guys in their minds, because they're letting them out of prison. In my state of New York, de Blasio and Cuomo are letting criminals out of prison. So it clearly shows that they're not necessarily trying to stop bad people from being out of prison. What they really want, I believe, is to make it more difficult for law-abiding citizens to own guns. And I've always said this, is that to the communists among us, we conservatives, traditional Americans, real Americans who believe in the Constitution and Bill of Rights, we are their opposition. We're the ones that they're trying to slow down from gun ownership and ultimately eliminate. So this isn't about trying to save lives as they claim, and it's not about stopping the gang members because they don't seem to care about that. It's us. We're their opposition, I think.
We've gotten a lot of comments in about universal background checks are basically...
And it's a gun registry, yes.
Yes. And one from George Geller that I think is incredibly important and right on point. And he says, NPR has a list with Charlie Cook's name on it.
Probably. I've over the last few years, whenever I put NPR on, I can take about, and I'm rounding up and being generous, about 3 minutes before I can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, you can watch for 3 minutes?
Listen, I can listen to it in 3 minutes while I'm in my car, but I know that I've got a podcast. Yeah, I've got a podcast ready to go on something else in about 4 seconds. So one of the comments said something about confiscation. Evan Nappen, who's a great attorney in New Jersey and lives up in New Hampshire, he likes to say that legislation leads to registration leads to confiscation, and confiscation leads to extermination. And that is exactly the path that we saw in Germany in World War II.
Not just there. Vietnam, we saw it. Cambodia, we certainly saw it. Across the globe, we've seen that. Almost every time there's a registration, something bad's happening for somebody very soon.
Yeah. So going back to background checks and not preventing people, it was just yesterday, maybe the day before, where somebody drove a car into a police barricade in Washington, D.C. with a car, and he had a knife, and he got out of his car, charged the police, and the police shot him. And I did see a tweet of Shannon, what's-her-face, from the Moms Demand Action, and she said, she's like, well, the gun laws are working because he didn't have a gun. He's probably not supposed to run into a police barricade and probably not supposed to charge police officers with a knife, but they being the anti-gun wackos, they seem to want to accept that sort of car violence or potential knife violence. They're willing to accept that, but they don't want to have gun violence.
They're obsessed with it.
Yeah,
they're obsessed.
It's what was Jeff Cooper's term? The hoplophobes?
Yeah, and even if you watch a lot of the movies and stuff, you'll see that most of the movie producers in Hollywood tend to be leftists. But if you'll notice, the guns in the movies and the way they're used, it's the most colorful and animated and juicy kind of murderous stuff that they got going on in a lot of the movies, and it's because they're so obsessed. The anti-gun crowd have made guns such a taboo topic for themselves that they can't stay away from it. They absolutely love it, and people like Shannon Watts, like you're referring to, same thing. They live their lives obsessed with guns, and the funny thing is, a lot of the rhetoric and the stuff that they'll say things like, well, if people have guns, they're going to be more likely to kill other people because, if they're violent in intent and all this stuff. Well, it's like the violent intent is happening in your brain. You're the one who's conjuring up these ideas of murder and mayhem and destruction and people mass murdering and all this stuff. These thoughts are happening in the minds of the anti-gun left, and yet we accept when they blame us for it. No, not going to accept that anymore. It's their projections, it's their thoughts, it's their thought process that is creating all this imagery and stuff. It's them with the murderous thoughts in their own minds, and we won't take the blame anymore.
I want to get a couple of social media comments in, if I could, quick, Charlie. Let's see here. George Geller says, it was a mostly peaceful car and a mostly peaceful knife. T.W. Seth says, the war on drugs shipped more guns to Central and South America than the Obama administration did. And I want to get to this one from DJ Play Nice DJ. is a very often he comments on every show I do, which is amazing because I do so many shows. I think he just waits for us to go live. But anyway, DJ says maybe the news angles sometimes, but the music and ball games and live concerts, weather, etc. The other programming isn't putrid. A former public radio employee. DJ, I can get that all from a Rush Limbaugh radio station too. I don't have to put up with slant on the news.
Right. I mean, the slant can certainly go both ways, which is fine and it's justifiable in a free market. But it's interesting that the bigger talk radio hosts, Rush and Hannity, the guys that have that sit in for Rush, I can't think of his name, the guy from England, from New Hampshire, they all are in working in a capitalist system where they have a radio show and they get advertisers and the radio show grows. NPR, not so much. They're taking donations all the time, and maybe their ideas don't work in a platform where people would have to support it.
One more here, real quick. TW Seth, John Wick was awesome and didn't have to pick it apart too much. You know, go Charlie.
That's because he trained at Terran Tactical. He didn't go back and watch cop shows from the 70s or anything like that. He actually went out and did some training and really learned how to use firearms. And God bless him for that. He had to make everything look smooth, which is great. Did you guys see? I don't know if you saw it. If you guys saw this, but there was a meme put out this week by somebody in some TV show. A guy was shooting an AR left-handed without a sight on it. Did you guys see this?
No.
No, this is something that came up in my feed a couple of times with some people. There's a guy in a movie, movie, TV show, I don't remember which one it was, holding an AR. He was holding it left-handed, and there were no sights on the gun. Great. Yeah. That's got to be safe, right?
All right, we're. I think we're going to split off here, and because I think this is going to take us in an entirely different direction. Stephen Legacy says suppressors shouldn't require NFA approval. It's a safety device for our hearing. Your lips to God's ears, Stephen. They tried getting that through the Senate several times over the past several years. Didn't exactly happen. But as somebody that suffers from hearing loss, Charlie and Dan have met me in person. They've seen me go, what? 1,000,000 times? Right now I've got headphones on that are extremely loud, and I can hear them very well. But I've got serious hearing loss. And I would love for suppressors to be cash and carry. You're right. They are required in Germany. If you want to have a long gun, you must have a suppressor in Germany. You're absolutely right. There's safety devices, but again, I'm a realist. Getting that through the Senate, not so much.
Staying with what Dan was talking about is we get all this misinformation from television shows, right? Kind of like what I was bringing up there. And what we all think about when we hear people that have suppressors on their firearms or a silencer, we see it with someone that's a trained killer and assassin because they want to be quiet when they murder someone at 2 o'clock in the morning. This is what people think about these items. They think, well, those are only for people that's only for shooting when you want to shoot someone and you don't know that you're shooting them. And I mean, I don't know if you guys have. I assume you guys have all fired firearms with a suppressor. I've done it once up in Maine. It's not necessarily quiet. It's quieter, but it's not necessarily quiet.
Yeah, and you know what? I did. I wrote an article on suppressors a while back, and I remember doing the research on the decibels. And even with a suppressor, an AR-15 is still louder than a Ted Nugent concert. It literally was. I mean, because I did the decibels on rock concerts and all sorts of different comparisons, and it's still pretty loud. The idea that the anti-gun crowd has is that it's literally silent and people are going to be sneaking up through the cities and just killing people, and nobody's going to know about it. And they have these ideas and these notions in their head, and because of the false propaganda and all the rhetoric and all the nonsense, we know the truth. It's nothing like that.
I think what they call that, real quick, I think what they call that is projecting.
Yeah.
One thing that people seem to suppressors with rifles really help. Suppressors with handguns kind of help. The thing about the suppressor is you are never going to make it totally silent as long as you're using supersonic ammo, which almost all ammo is, because the bullet itself is going to crack as it goes through the air. So right. There is no, you're never going to get a silencer where you hear, that's it, because the ammo itself makes a crack like a crack of a whip as it goes through the air.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. Steven has a follow-up comment here. I'll get to that in just a second here. New York Outcast, TV programs people. That's why people originally deferred to show as programs. IMO, it's a tool. And then Steven says the anti-gun crowd watches too many movies. I watch, of course, they're all older movies that I remember from when I was a kid, but I've been accused of watching too many movies myself. So,
but the difference is, the crap in the movies that's not true, and what I don't want to say what is real, but it's not. It's, to me, a movie is in a way to escape my pathetic life for 2 hours. That's all it is.
Yeah. And talking about Hollywood and cinema, I was just thinking, and what is crap. I actually binge watched old episodes of the A-Team a while back. Talk about some awesome people that needed some training for a special ops crew. Man, nobody on that show could shoot worth a darn.
I pity those fools.
Oh boy.
Wow. At this.
So go ahead. I was just going to say the anti-gun folks make all of our gun laws. So another thing I bring up in classes is in Massachusetts we cannot have a flash hider, but we can have a muzzle brake that has holes on the side of it, just like a flash hider does. And I think it's a lot of uneducation from with these people, because a suppressor, God, I just had it. What was it called?
Muzzle brake?
A flash suppressor. A flash suppressor sounds like you're up to something, but a muzzle brake does not. And it really is having to take the language back and using the language properly. Muzzle brakes are okay to have, but a flash hider is not. So I have an A2 birdcage flash hider that I had to take off of my AR-15, and I put a Yankee Hill one on that has sharp points and bevelings all around it because it looks eviler, but it's okay to have because it has a small hole all the way through it. I mean, it's people just don't know what all this stuff is. And when you try to educate them, they don't want to hear it because they're stuck in their belief of guns are evil, guns are bad, and flash hiders mean you're shooting someone, and a silencer means you're a hired assassin.
Right. Charlie, the hired assassin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna put on my business card.
From Massachusetts.
I had thought, and I did a fast Google search just now. I had thought there was a product out there, and I found it just now in the American Shooting Journal. It's the exact opposite of everything we've been talking about, and it's real. It's the AR-15 Loudner. It's just like you put on a muzzle brake or a flash hider, only it increases the volume and increases the flash out of your barrel. I will go ahead and they'll have to go into the YouTube comments, but if any of the audience wants to go ahead and check it out, that's
Homer Simpson wanted one of those on one of his guns when he went to buy a gun, and he's like, I don't want a softener, I want a loudener, and I want to have this like, auto thumbcock for his revolver. And of course, after the guy beefed up his assault firearm handgun, he turned it and he says, well, listen, you can't have this for 10 days. And of course, Homer Simpson says, well, I won't be mad in 10 days.
And that's typical. That's typical of the mindset of, that's what they think. I'm glad you brought that up, Charlie, because the delay periods, the delay times that they want to put on gun purchases is in their mind for that cooling down period. Okay, we've heard about the cooling down period, but the truth is, how many cases of any kind of gun-related incidents have we seen where the person went directly from the gun store to commit the crime? It just doesn't happen. But
no.
And this is the scary part, and this is the stuff that I always look at. It's like, what are they thinking? What is the anti-gun crowd thinking with this cooling off time? Sounds to me like they're talking about themselves more than anything else.
Again, it's projecting.
Yes, exactly.
Well, why would I want a gun? I wouldn't want a gun because someone parked too close to me and I want to shoot them.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
How do I put this? When I was always a fairly mellow guy, but when I started carrying every day, I was...
Got really mellow.
Yes, I was really aware, because let's face it, folks, every situation, every confrontation you get into when you're carrying is an armed one because you are armed. And God knows I do not want to use my firearm. And so I've been, every day, you look for ways to de-escalate. You look for ways to avoid problems. And I think that's why we become so safe, is not that we've got a gun in the final extreme if something happens, but because we don't want to use that gun, so many of us pay attention that we just avoid conflicts.
Yeah, that's a great point. I had a friend of mine. He's an anti-gun guy, and we got into it. We got into it a lot about stuff. But he says, "Well, what about when you get into a fight on the side of the road?" I'm like, "Dude, I've never been into a fight on the side of the road. I never have." But I'm not going to kill someone for that, because it's not worthy of taking someone's life. It's not. And this is where you're like, okay, if you're going to get a gun, you need to learn about, with your $1,400 stimulus check, buy a $600 gun and buy $800 worth of training. Learn when you can and when you can't, and when you should and shouldn't.
And, back to that whole projection thing, I talked to a woman, I still know her actually, but somewhat of a friend and acquaintance years ago, and she was telling me, and she's telling me the story, and I was listening to the story, and I'm thinking to myself, she's crazy, but she said she's in the bank, she's in line at the bank, and there was a guy in front of her who had a gun on him, and he must have been an off-duty security or whatever he was, but he had an open carry. And they're in line at the bank, and she's going, "Dan, don't you think that's a little dangerous?" And I said, "Why? What are you talking about?" She said, he had a gun right on him. She's going. And I'm saying, "Okay, what's your point? I don't understand what you're getting at." Eventually, after the conversation, she started getting really annoyed with me because I couldn't understand why a guy in line at the bank with a gun on him was such a big deal. Because I carry every day. And she's going, "Dan, I can't believe you don't see the problem with this. Having a gun right there in public." And I said, "Okay, what are you talking about?" She said, "I could have easily taken that gun right out of his holster and started shooting people." And I'm like, did you seriously just say that to me? Did those words seriously just come out of your mouth from your thought process? So this is the problem, Charlie. We talked about, you said projection. This is exactly what the problem is. They're projecting all over us. And they're making it our problem when it's really them who have the problem.
Right.
Amen.
All right, we're gonna run late because we're coming up on top of the hour right now. And before we get through what we're gonna do, it's gonna be after. So thank you, first of all, everybody who has been commenting, everybody who's watching. Seriously, you folks make this hour fly by. I had one topic that I was going to bring up, and that was constitutional carry in Iowa and Tennessee when we started the show. You guys created the show, meaning the people who watched and commented. Thank you for doing that. As we're on our way out the door, I'm going to start with Dan. If you would please, Dan, tell everybody a little bit about you and where people can find your stuff.
Well, my Good Gun, Bad Guy book series is written. I wrote it primarily to help people understand exactly what we're talking. Oh, thanks, Charlie.
Oh, hey, look at
got it right here on the table.
Here we go. Here we go.
Yeah, don't cut him off now.
This is the money shot.
That's the money shot. Thank you, pal. I appreciate that. And but it's to talk about all the stuff we're talking about. Charlie and Paul and I have been talking about today. Is that it's the mindset of the anti-gunner that's creating all this nonsense. And if we can better understand them, we can either help them or defeat them. That's what my Good Gun, Bad Guy book series is all about. I write for AmmoLand and Daily Caller and Truth About Guns and a bunch of publications. But you can get my books at goodgunbadguy.com or goodgunbadguy.net.
All right, Charlie, you're up next.
All right, so I've got a YouTube channel called Riding Shotgun with Charlie, and I take a bunch of people in the gun community out, and we drive around and we talk about whatever it is that they do. Next Tuesday, April 13th, I am going to be putting out my 100th episode, which I don't want to talk down the podcasting guys, but it takes a lot to edit videos. It takes a lot of time and everything. And a lot of for me getting around the country to interview people takes a lot of time and energy and effort. So getting to 100 shows is quite an accomplishment. You can find it at I've got a Facebook page for Riding Shotgun with Charlie. I've got a YouTube channel. So if you enjoy the show, you should go there and subscribe to that and click on the notification. You can also watch the show on Gunstreamer and on the OpsLens app. And I put the audio out on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on iHeartRadio. You can find all of this at the Self-Defense Radio Network. And I've got some stickers for sale and all that kind of cool stuff, too. So find me and check me out.
Also, he has another YouTube channel.
The Gungram page. I love it. You won that in Florida a couple weeks ago, huh?
I did.
That's awesome.
I want one of those mugs, Charlie. I got to get one.
All right, I'll get one to you.
Well, isn't there a website he could go to?
There is. It is the Teespring store. So if you go to teespring.com/stores/Riding Shotgun with Charlie, you can order one. You can order a Gungram or a Riding Shotgun with Charlie mug there. And I got shirts and hoodies and stickers and patches, and trying to keep up with all the merch. It's still playing in a band. It's still about the merch, Dan.
Well, I just want to know one thing: can I drink scotch out of that mug?
I did a little ad for my mugs when I got them in, and I called them coffee mugs or whiskey mugs, depending on when you use it. So absolutely,
that would be a good amount of scotch. It really would.
Yeah.
It's the same size as a tumbler. It'll be fine, A rocks glass. It's the same size. It just has a handle on it.
It's like 30 fingers. 30 fingers of scotch.
It's fine. You're a highly trained professional.
We got one more comment. Some lady named Susan Lathrop says, "Put it in the comments." So,
yeah, the link, Charlie. Put the link in
the link. I don't know how to do this. Can I do this from here?
And Stephen Legacy says, "Rum goes better with coffee."
There we go. The island coffee.
Folks, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to shut this down. I want to thank everybody for watching. As I said, you made this show. Dan and Charlie and I simply kind of went the direction you steered us. I want to thank Dan and Charlie for joining me today, and I want to thank you for watching and participating. Come join me Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Central Time, the only time zone, John Anderson, that matters, and we'll give you the Daily Bullet. Come join us next Saturday at noon. We'll give you the Weekly Bullet. Thanks for watching, everybody.